Good morning. It's a pleasure talking to a good judge, a great judge, an affable judge, and above all, a lovely friend and a gracious human being, Rajiv Shakdher. I'll call him Rajiv. Thank you. To begin with, yes, can we know what attracted you to the law? I mean, they say journey to the bench, but I'm beginning from the very beginning.
First of all, can I just have a short introduction? In the sense, thank the organizers, Vikesh Dehani especially, who would come to invite me. This is actually my second participation, so to say, in Vidhi Utsav. I was called last year also. And when Vikesh came to me,
on law and literature last
I
year.
spoke on law and literature last year. And when Vikesh came to me this year, I said, listen, sometimes this monologue can get a little boring for the audience. Someone told me long ago that the attention span of the audience is about 20 minutes. After that, it dips, they go to their phones, they start wondering about other things and other aspects that are pressing. Apart from what they are called upon to do is to listen to a speaker. So he agreed with me, and little did I know that he would actually expose me to a fireside chat, quote unquote, as it is called now. And I'll have to face the scrutiny of my dear friend Sudhish Pai. In fact, may I just say that Sudhish and I go back a long way, though we meet very rarely because he stays in another part of the country. Sudhish, you remember we worked on restatement of law.
Yes, yes.
And
legislative privileges.
Yes, one part of it, legislative privileges. Justice Muralidhar was there,
Yes, yes.
Mr. Pai was there, and I was there. So that was our first encounter. The second encounter I will tell you in the course of our conversation here. To come back to the question that Mr. Pai just put to me, what made me take to law? Actually, law was not my first love. I've said that publicly before. I was very much taken up with the armed forces when I was young. And I loved the idea of flying these aircrafts, the jumpsuit, the glares, etc., etc. In fact, I had almost, I'd taken the National Defense Academy exam and I was always there. But as fate had it, I, took to law. In fact, I started with chartered accountancy. I completed that, but I liked the legal aspect and I took to law. And that was, I think, the next best thing or something that drove me. In fact, accountancy also didn't drive me. What I liked about it was law. So that's how I landed in law.
And for the benefit of the younger members of the audience, perhaps your experiences as a young lawyer and what is it that one should learn? And how did it eventually help your journey to the bench? I hope it's not too long a question.
No, it isn't. See, when I started as a lawyer, I had no clue about judgeship.
Yeah.
I was
in a sense, has that way.
No, in a sense, if someone in your family is a lawyer or a judge, it's easier. You know the environment, you know the terrain, as they say. No one was a judge, no one was a lawyer. In fact, no one was an accountant, a chartered accountant in my house. So it was actually, you tumbled along, and I became a lawyer. From lawyer, I was called to the bench. Good old days when you were called to the bench and you didn't have to go lobbying for becoming a judge.
That's the marked difference.
That's the difference. In fact, finding a good chamber, which I think is very important for any young lawyer. When I say a good chamber, we heard Mr. Jain about chambers where you learn, apart from the technical skills of law, ethics of the profession is sometimes very tough, even for a first generation lawyer, because you go, you make an application, because of various reasons you don't get invited to join the chamber. So it's a struggle for first generation lawyers, which is why I think seniors should open their doors and give opportunity to youngsters, especially those who don't have roots in the profession. That's how I would look at it.
You began, if I'm not wrong, in Mr. Harish Salve's.
Yes, Sudhish, I did, but that was also a matter of chance. I mean, Harish was not what he is today. Mr. Salve was himself.
Solis Junior. And,
He was not designated then.
yes.
He had actually moved out of Soli's chamber. In a sense, he was appearing independently, but he would also appear with Soli those days. So in a sense, I got an opportunity to see both of them at work, especially Mr. Sorabji. He was in his heydays then. And something that I've said again, in fact, I made applications to various law firms, the known ones here, including J.B. Dadachandji, Gagrat, Shroffs, etc., etc. And finally, somehow one of my elders told me, why don't you go and see Mr. Sorabji? So when I went and met Mr. Sorabji, he looked at my CV and said, oh, you're a chartered accountant. So my junior rather, Mr. Salve is also a chartered accountant. Why didn't you go and work with him? So he picked up the phone and he called him, and in a sense I thought I was sort of sent to another chamber. But I didn't realize then that it may turn out to be a boon.
Just like if I remember, Harish himself was sent to Soli by Nani.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
So, but it did turn out to be a boon. Why? As I said, Harish was not a designated senior, but he was an arguing counsel who would, I'm talking about the late 80s, would go to every forum practically. So it was the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, the High Court, the Supreme Court. So when we traveled with him, we got that opportunity to visit all these forums, which is important for a young lawyer. And when he couldn't make it, or there was a clash, you got that little opportunity to say something about the matter, if the bench was encouraging. So that's how it actually began, Sudhish.
And what would you advise the youngsters, how they go about their job in becoming lawyers and after they become lawyers?
If I were to take my own example, first of all, I don't think you should get demoralized by the fact that success doesn't come quickly enough, because it is a game of patience. And never refuse work because of the fact that it doesn't get you money. I know you need money to survive, especially in a city like Delhi. And those of you who have come to the city here and have no roots here, you need some amount of money. But if you can cross-subsidize, in a sense that you get a matter where you get a little bit of money, and in some other matter you practically get no money, don't refuse work. Because every matter that you do gives you some experience. If you prepare it yourself, you're expected to read the law, understand the facts, and then frame an action, whether it is a original side action or an appellate side action. You need to do that. And the best place, therefore, to start is to find yourself, as I started my conversation with Sudhish, is to try and find a chamber where there is a lot of work and a good environment in terms of ethics, in terms of how things are done, how clients are treated, I find a lot of chambers, when they get success, they don't treat their clients well, which is something sad, because people come to lawyers because they are in need of a professional who can help them with their troubles in lives. It's like a doctor. Uh, the difference, why do you go to a particular doctor again and again? Not only because of his technical skills, because also he has a good bedside manner. Similarly, a lawyer needs to empathize, especially when he can't. A good lawyer, an ethical lawyer, can't guarantee results, but he can at least listen to what his client has to say. So, in this rush of work or servicing a more richer or a client with deeper pockets, you sometimes give short shrift to those who need help and assistance. So, find yourself a good chamber or a good lawyer, acquire the requisite experience, and when you get cases, don't refuse them. In fact, the best way to get cases sometimes is, especially for first generation lawyers, is to do a lot of pro bono work, which gives you exposure, which gives you visibility. So if you can join a legal aid panel, nothing like it. Every court has a legal aid panel. And if you're competent, judges, sitting judges will pick you up. And that's how you make your mark.
Mr. Nariman used to say, quoting the great Daftari, that as important as it is to read a brief, perhaps even more important is to think about the case. So would you like to tell the youngsters something about that?
Absolutely right. If you're passionate about your work, it remains with you. I can tell you now, I've gone back to lawyering.
Yeah, yeah.
This is my third inning. In fact, now I'm speaking as a lawyer, more as a lawyer than a judge, that when you are passionate about your work, it actually you cogitate about it, you ruminate about it, you think about it. So after you've done, as Mr. Pai said, reading the facts, etc., it's how you want to present it is something that you keep, in a sense, rotating in your mind. I'll give you an example. I was recently engaged by a group. It's a very robust group, does some wonderful work in death penalty cases. It's called Project Article 39A. So I was approached to appear in a matter concerning death penalty. And I can tell you the kind of work, hard work these youngsters had done, the team that came to me, was remarkable. The way they had examined the evidence, the judgments of the trial court and the high court, and the way they were prepared to deconstruct whatever had been said by the courts below, and wanting to project their point of view to the Supreme Court. So these persons were doing, this is a pro bono group. So when they approached me and I looked at the kind of preparation that they did, it was so heartening. And because I was doing a death penalty case, it stayed with me. I was doing other matters also, but every day I would think of two things. If I go wrong, what will happen to the man who's waiting for a verdict? And if I am living this case, I'm sure the person concerned who's on the death row is also thinking about his case, that what is the outcome going to be? So, as I said, if you are passionate about your work, it comes automatically. You kind of immerse yourself in the case, sometimes at the cost of family, in the sense they think you are somewhere else. You're not there because you're thinking of your matters. So yes, it's about thinking about the matter. How do you present it? Because you don't know, and I have done it to people, I'm sure, as a judge.
Come to you sometimes.
Correct.
At all odd hours.
Correct. Yes, you're right, Sudhish. So as I was saying, sometimes I have done it to lawyers, I'm sure, when I was a judge, because you don't know what the judge is going to ask you. And he may ask you a question which you perhaps, did not look at the matter in that perspective. So you keep thinking about the matter completely. I completely agree with you on that.
And your transition from the bar to the bench, how was it, and what was the feeling? And what do you think should be the preparation and equipment?
No, Sudhish, it was, in my case, I can tell you it was very sudden because I, I was asked and I actually can't figure out why did I say yes. uh, but then, usual thing when you talk to friends and all, some said no because I had already been designated and I was quite comfortable as a lawyer. But, I accepted the job. I would be dishonest in not telling this audience that initially I missed the cut and thrust of litigation. You know, appearing in a matter, preparing for a matter, appearing in a matter, arguments, etc., etc. It's very exciting,
Challenging.
challenging, and then trying to defend a cause or project a cause for determination. But then, having, in a sense, being harnessed, I decided to go through the entire phase. I mean, and I realized that if you want to do a job, this is the best job that you can have. Why do I say that? Because no one can tell you how to do your job, not even the Chief Justice of your court or the Chief Justice of India. And that applies for judge at every level. You take up any other job, there is always hierarchy. So as far as your courtroom is concerned, you're the master. The point is, do you free yourself of all extraneous mental and other pressures that you create for yourself? If you can do this, this is the best job.
Because independence also implies independence of yourself.
Correct.
That's what you're.
Yes. So when you do that and you are clear that I am here to do what I should be doing, which is the right thing, then there is no problem. It is when, as you grow in the job, and which is also legitimate, I mean, because it becomes like a service to aspire to go to the next level. But as long as you bear in mind that you will not compromise on your core fundamental ethical principles, it's a job worth trying out. I have said this before that even if you don't take up the job when it is offered to you, say, it all depends when you're offered. If you're offered at a young age, then you have a long stint. But even if you're offered the job in your mid 50s, it's a good job to accept. Why? You do your bit, like the armed forces, like a short service commission. Do your best, give your best to the job, get out and practice again. Because then the expectation is not to reach somewhere, but to do what you're supposed to do when you're in saddle, which you should do anyways. But I'm saying at 55, if you take up the job,
You don't look forward to something.
you're not. That's the second model, and I think the collegium should pick up good, experienced lawyers even in that age bracket because they will add heft to the court. Their experience, they'll be able to dispose of matters.
That's really a point because many times human as everyone is, there is always the idea of looking forward to something by itself not bad, but then it also gets into and eats into the vitals sometimes.
I agree with you, but as I said, as long as you're very focused and you're clear that it doesn't matter where you go, it is what matters is what you do because history judges all of us. when you look back, you'll find there are several judges, if you're who don't make it to the top court, but they're still remembered by us.
Yes, yes.
And there are several who reach
Went
the
to
top
the
court,
top,
are
but
forgotten
the next day.
the next day. It is because they forget the fundamental job of a judge is to do the right thing. So that's how I.
What would you say should be the equipment? I mean, this equipment for a lawyer and a judge essentially is the same.
See, as I often say, the difference between a lawyer's role and a judge's role is this. You may argue to your heart's content. I'm assuming, suppose you pick up a good cause. But you don't decide as to the fate of the case, as to what the outcome is. What the judges do, and something that we don't do like to do in our daily life. You go to a shop, most of us don't even want to select the shirt or the trouser that he wants to wear or the dress a lady wants to wear. You would have someone else, your friend, your mother, your sister, your father, saying a suggestion, decide. But what the judge does is...
You're alone there.
Yeah. You put pen to paper, and there are cases which will test your moral fiber. And you would see there are so many instances, and Sudhish will tell you, he's written about so many judges, that when it comes to that crucial juncture, that your moral fiber is tested, and that is what a lawyer is not
required to do.
So that, according to me, is the difference between the two jobs. Of course, attributes like being a good listener, because I find increasingly, because of pressure or otherwise, people have stopped listening. They are hearing, but they are not listening.
Would you kindly dwell on that? Because there's a vital difference between hearing and listening.
Yeah. Listening means, see, as a judge, are you there to beat the lawyer, or are you there to decide a matter? Some judge rightly said long ago that you must read enough to
that was Chief Justice Chandrachud.
And not beat the lawyer. Yeah. So when you read some judges, everyone has his own model. When you read so much from cover to cover, actually it's impossible. Because when you're doing in India, typically even in a court like Delhi, where you do 65 cases, you go to states, the presidency courts, they have large number of matters because they are bigger courts. It's impossible to read every matter, let's say, from cover to cover. A lawyer is expected to know his brief from cover to cover. So you read enough to ask him those questions so that you get assistance. You know the broad architecture. You also know with experience whether the matter is viable or not viable. For example, you look at the relief, you look at the grounds, and you get a broad picture. But if you want to read every document, and before the lawyer starts, you start saying, no, but I know this, I know that, I know this. The lawyer is actually derailed. And if his client is sitting in court, it becomes like a quizmaster's court rather than an
Court
appeal to his lordship as to what my client wants to say. See, the lawyer is only a modicum or a medium to express what he wants the court to hear. And similarly, he has to hear the other matter. So, irrespective of the pressure, even if you think the matter requires dismissal, if you ever become a judge, give yourself that time and mental space. Give the lawyer, and especially the youngsters who are trying to make their mark, because that matter may be his make or break. For the client, for him or her. The client may not come back because he'll say, listen, at the end of the day, I need results. And that's legitimate for a litigant. So if he doesn't get audience, he simply loses in that journey to make it, good or become successful, reasonably successful, earn his living. So I think it's important to listen, to absorb. So many times you may start with an impression, but when you hear, or as I say, listen and absorb, it's a mental process. And you suddenly find there is something there. You said, okay, this matter requires further examination. I'll issue notice. If it's an ex parte matter, I'll protect. Or when you hear the other side, you may actually find answers which you were looking for from the petitioner or the plaintiff. Because he may end up saying something or pointing out something. He may do it out of fairness also. There are some lawyers who will get up and say, listen, these are the handicaps, but this is how I want to project it, which is also a good way of doing
the highest
advocacy.
ethical standard.
That's highest ethical standards, which also as a lawyer you must do. See, if you have something, it's a needle in a haystack case in India. Sometimes the judge doesn't know, where that needle is in that bundle. If you're a fair lawyer and if you tell the judge that this is a problem, but I wish to address it in a particular way, even if he can't give you relief in that matter, he'll always remember you for your fairness. Because my advice to youngsters is never ever lose the court. Just because you're not getting your way with the judge because of his pressure, of his view, maybe next time, do your best, but never lose the judge. That's not what advocacy is about. And as I said, he or she will always remember you for what you said. Because umpteen number of times, at least when I was sitting on a bench with a puny judge, you would say, listen, this guy, this boy or this girl is doing a fabulous job, but in this matter we perhaps may not be able to give him relief. So when you come up as youngsters, you've spent about 15, 20 years for designation. That's when we say this is the person who needs to be designated. Apart from other characteristics which are, your integrity, your ethicality, etc., etc.
Your fairness counts.
Fairness counts. Because it is not said without meaning when judges say you're officers of the court. And I keep repeating, it is very important in the Indian scenario. Why? Because impossible. I mean, you're not a judge sitting in English courts where you can walk alongside Thames, as I say. I used to tell when I used to go on conferences and meet these judges from other jurisdictions, I said, you've got luxurious life, man. You can walk around along the river and, think about how you want to decide. I don't have that liberty. And they used to be aghast that every day you have so many matters and still we are able to navigate and deal with it. Not to everyone's satisfaction, but we do attempt. So that's how it is. I think you've taken a lot of time.
I would have loved to continue the conversation, but I think our half an hour is...
Yeah, that's one discipline we must all stick to, which is time.
Yes. So thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure and privilege talking to you, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, before I go, because Sudhish has reminded me what was our second encounter. I think the audience know in a sense that when I was transferred to Madras, there were several well-wishers who called me, but Sudhish was one of them who also called me. And mind you, this was a conversation on the phone, and he spoke about his own mentor, Justice Venkatachalaya, and how, according to him, it was not a fair call, whoever took it, but it meant so much to me. So, yeah, I remembered that, and Sudhish has been a friend since then. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Justice Shakdher.